When people finally stumble upon the polyvagal theory, they get really excited. That might include you. PVT seems to have answers. It explains how you got stuck and even how you remain stuck in a defensive state. I'm guessing you're stuck in freeze. I can tell because you clicked on this episode, which is all about freeze. In this episode, I will discuss what freeze is and why you might be thinking the way that you think in a freeze state. Hey there, I am Justin Sunseri. I am a therapist and coach who wants to teach you how to live with more calm, confidence, and connection without psychobabble or woo-woo. Welcome to Stuck Not Broken. This is, of course, not therapy, nor is it intended to replace therapy. This is actually a clip from one of my open Q&As from within my Stuck Not Collective community. One of my members asked about this, so hope you enjoy it too. Some of the impulses and cognitions described in the SSIEC tool, when I read them, they do not make sense to me. I would like to better understand the impulse of release in the freeze state. Can you elaborate? So freeze, imagine, let's put an image to this, maybe it'll help make more sense. Imagine there is a slinky comes to mind. You know, a slinky gets really tight. Well, it condenses and it can expand. So imagine or we'll do a spring, not a slinky. If you push down on a spring, you can immobilize the spring, but it has all this tension inside of it, like it wants to release. Once you release the immobilization, it releases. So freeze, I conceptualize similarly, where someone or a mammal could go through something, they tense up, and to get out of that situation, that freeze energy is supposed to explode into aggression or evasion. So fighting back or running away. And it's one big release, one big burst of movement from that frozen state. So for traumatized individuals, if you're stuck in freeze, then that freeze activation can linger day to day, but it can also be triggered in a specific moment by a trigger, by a cue of that event, right? So day to day, it's still there because the immobilization, the squeeze is still on, if we stick to that image of the spring. So the immobilization of shutdown compresses the flight-fight activation. And so it's really the flight-fight activation that's like ready to explode. But the immobilization of shutdown is what's keeping it pushed in.
Yeah. So you experience at the same time the tension and immobilization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be felt as tension. You experience the flight-fight activation, but it's stuck. It can't be used for what it's supposed to be used for, running away or aggression. So the flight-fight is immobilized due to shutdown. So freeze is a combination of flight-fight plus shutdown, sympathetic plus dorsal vagal. For people who are more of a freeze traumatized state, when the freeze gets triggered, it's the flight-fight being triggered with the shutdown, so it just stays like that. And what ends up happening is that it explodes into rage or panic, which is too much. It's a dysregulated release. And what we want is a regulated release. We want safety active along with, we want safety active to turn down the shutdown, basically. So as that immobilization eases up, we want the flight-fight expansion to come gradually. We don't want it to spring and to explode. We want that to expand gradually. So as more safety comes on, then shutdown can come off, hopefully little by little. As that happens, then we can release flight-fight a little bit at a time. Make sense?
Yeah, total sense. Really clear. Thank you.
And then you said, I would also like to better appreciate how the following cognitions are connected to a freeze state. So let's ground ourselves back in this. So with freeze, flight-fight is active, but it's stuck. It is frozen in place by dorsal vagal immobilization. So imagine, like, you can stick with the spring I'm imagining it like jittery, but we can imagine a car where you're slamming on the accelerator and the brake at the same time, and the wheels just spin. The engine gets loud, it's revving, the car is shaking, right? So if that's the state of the body, like what happens in our brain, what happens in our mind, what happens to our thoughts, really? So in that state where it's highly revved up and there's really no safety active, it's going to be kind of all or nothing. The thinking is going to be very black or white. It's extreme. Thinking is going to be pretty extreme. So when we say all or nothing, that's what we mean is that. There's no safety present. There's no empathy. There's no compassion, consideration. I mean, at the extreme, it's just I'm activated, but I can't do anything with it. So thinking becomes very extreme because it matches the state of the body. The body is in the state of danger and life threat. So scattered, in that state, you can't really focus on one thing, or I guess you could overly focus and to the point of obsession. Oh, the next word is obsessive. So as a way to, I consider this with OCD, as a way to contain that out of control flight fight activation, the person's behavioral adaptation might be to overly focus on something in particular, or create a ritual, like locking something 6 times. That ritual doesn't solve the problem, but it might contain that flight fight activation that's just spinning its wheels. It might help to lower it enough to move on to the next step of like going to bed. That's obsession. And then the compulsion is you're acting on it. Scattered, for someone who's in freeze, it could be flight fight also, but freeze, its thoughts could be all over the place. This is probably more with a panicky kind of freeze, because freeze can be rageful or panicky, or overwhelmed or stress. But freeze, in the more panicky flavor of it, I could see as scattered, like just all over the place, not able to identify the issue or where the danger's from. I'm just focusing on this and then this and then this and that. Flashbacks would be it's flashbacks. You're specifically a memory, an image, or a re-experiencing of the thing that put someone into freeze, the event. Grandiose, I would see that as another one of those cognitive adaptations where it doesn't solve anything, but if someone in freeze can focus on how incredible they are, it's like now that might contain what's happening within me. That might help reduce my own freeze activation it's not a conscious thought. No one's choosing to do this really. But if one can overly think about a thing or themselves as being so much better than maybe, or so much more capable than they really are, I don't know. That might help to, if I can focus on that, maybe that gives me a sense of containment of like my activation inside. I would call that a cognitive adaptation versus a behavioral one. And then shaming, that's more probably due to the nature of where freeze comes from. Oftentimes freeze comes from acute traumatic incidents, like a thing that somebody went through. And those things are a lot of times can be assaults of various kinds. So those can leave somebody feeling disgusting, shameful, ashamed, but it's really more about what was done to them. The person's inflicting their shame onto another. So the thoughts in a stuck freeze state, probably depending on how you got there in the first place, but the thoughts might be about, I'm a bad person, not I did a bad thing. Shame and guilt are different. Guilt is I did something wrong and I feel bad about it. And shame is there's something wrong with me in my core as a person. But that, no one's born like that, I don't think. So that probably comes from, I would assume, repeated incidents that left someone in more of a freeze state versus, it could come from one as well.
And can we have the shame because of this freeze state? Let's say we were assaulted and we couldn't move, we couldn't defend ourselves, we were frozen, and then we feel shame. Is it all linked together?
Yeah, it could be, yeah. That's usually with the people I work with. Well, it's plus, messages that we get from caretakers, from trusted individuals in our lives. Shame can come from a lot of places, but it could be connected with freeze. The feeling of disgust, I think, can go along with shame. The feeling of revulsion I think, come along with shame and be connected to the freeze state in particular.
I wondered if you work the cognitions to have an impact on the rest, on the state or on the sensation or emotion. So is that a way you can start with the cognition and then make your way up?
Yeah, that's usually where, I mean, not usually, but many times where we start. But yeah, you totally can, just by learning something like polyvagal theory or attachment theory, or learning, for some people, they like different modalities like internal family systems. Learning a top-down piece of knowledge can help someone to make sense of or contain what's happening within them. So yeah. A common thing I do that's top-down is the validate, normalize, and give permission process, where can you validate what you feel, just name it. Can you normalize it, make sense of it, and can you then give permission for it to be there? And all that's pretty much top-down stuff. And then once you do that, then the more bottom-up felt experience stuff can occur. So yeah, it can totally be a way to calm, to contain, to make sense of, or even to eventually allow what's happening bottom up. Thank you for joining me here on Stuck Not Broken. Being stuck can show up in many forms, whether it's anxiety or anger, depression, overwhelm, or fear. You already know what it feels like to be stuck, I'm sure. Now all you need is some direction and guidance that makes sense and doesn't cost hundreds of dollars. That's where my Stuck Not Broken Total Access membership comes in. As a member, you'll get exclusive step-by-step guidance through my polyvagal trauma relief system. It's designed to teach you the polyvagal theory clearly and simply, how to access and maintain access and build the strength of your safety state, and even how to access your defensive state with compassion and curiosity and get unstuck. You'll also join a community of others on a similar journey where you can connect, share, and learn together. Plus, you'll have opportunities to interact with me directly in the community, or during the twice monthly open Q&As, or even during live cohort experiences like Shutdown to Stillness. If you're ready to start your journey, head on over to justinlmft.com/total access. I'll have a link in the description. But yeah, join today. I can't wait to welcome you when you get there. Bye.